Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. May all just our distinguished guests, esteemed faculty, and dear students to ensure that their mobile phones. जो उन्हीं की इंग्लिश के चेक कृष्णा डेबराइट्स में मैसेज डाल दो कि यहाँ आ जाओ जिसे आना है लिख के डाल दो फर्स्ट ईयर्स को कंपलसरी है बटन दबाओ Good morning, everyone. May I request all our distinguished guests, esteemed faculty, and our dear students to please ensure that their mobile phones are on silent mode, so as that we may proceed without any disturbances. I now request everyone to please rise as our honored guests take their seats. ये तो आ ही जाएंगे, वो सीधा बैठ ही जाएंगे.
क्या हुआ?
हाँ हर्ष भैया, बताइए। यहाँ पे 15 के करीब होंगे बस। बोला है मैंने, मैसेज वैसेज डलवाए हैं। छोटा मैडम। हेलो। हेलो हेलो।
गेस्ट का नाम?
हाँ हाँ ठीक है।
You are all requested to arise as our esteemed guests have arrived.
Good morning, everyone. May I kindly request you to please ensure that all the mobile phones are on silent mode so that we may proceed without any disturbances. A very warm welcome to all who have gathered here today. Our esteemed resource person, the dedicated faculty of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar National Law University, Sonepat, and our spirited students whose curiosity makes events like this truly come alive. I, Abhidwa,
And I, Harshita.
we are honored to be your anchors for today's workshop.
There has always been a powerful, if uneasy, relationship between the law and the media. The courtroom and the newsroom, though governed by very different rules, are both in the business of truth. One seeks it through evidence and argument, the other through inquiry and the public interest. Today, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar National Law University, Sonepat, brings these two worlds into the same room through a live media workshop under the theme Law, Media and the Space Between. The workshop is designed to be an immersive, interactive experience, a bridge between legal education and the realities of journalism in India today. Our resource persons today are not just journalists, they are institution builders, legal translators and truth tellers who have spent decades navigating that very space between law and media. It is an honor to have them with us. Let us begin.
We now invite our esteemed guest and our distinguished faculty, along with all the resource persons, to kindly proceed for the lighting of the ceremonial lamp. As the lamp is lit, we illuminate not just this hall, but also our minds. With the light of knowledge, ethical inquiry, and the pursuit of truth, may its glow remind us of our shared responsibility to inform, to question, and to serve the public interest.
तुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारसारपरमा आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनीं वीणापुस्तकधारिणीम् अभयदां जाड्यान्धकारापहा.
We now request everyone to please remain standing for the Kulgeet of our university.
शुभ न्याय मिले अन्याय टले, शुभ न्याय मिले अन्याय टले, ओ सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते. कर्तव्य भाव की वो दीक्षा, मौलिक अधिकारों की रक्षा, मानवता धर्म निभाने की जन जन को सुलभ रहे शिक्षा, इसको पाने के लिए सदा हम धर्म मार्ग चलते। जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते, जयति जय सत्यमेव जयते।
Thank you. Please be seated.
Now, for today's workshop on media and law, to talk about that, we have our distinguished guest, Mr. Satya Prakash, legal editor of Tribune, Mr. Jatin Gandhi, former executive director at Jagran, Mr. Sandeep Phukan, as associate editor, The Hindu, Mr. Neeraj Mohan, principal correspondent, Hindustan Time, Mr. Singh, senior respondent of Times of India, The Times of India, Mr. Mukesh Tondon, staff correspondent of the Tribune.
If there is one journalist in India who has built an entire career at the crossroads of law and the press, it is our first speaker. Sir, Mr. Satya Prakash is the legal editor of The Tribune, India's distinguished 144 years old newspaper. A qualified lawyer himself, holding an LLB and a background in journalism from IIMC, he has spent his career translating the complex language of the Supreme Court and the Ministry of Law and Justice into news that ordinary citizens can understand and act upon. He is also a columnist, a poet, a public speaker, a TV panelist, and a media trainer. Prior to The Tribune, he served as legal and associate editor at Hindustan Times and earlier with PTI and All India Radio. He embodies everything this workshop stands for. Sir, we are honored. Please address us.
Good morning, teachers and my dear students, fellow panelists. Am I audible? Good morning, teachers, my dear students and fellow panelists. I'm pleased to be here this morning. I'm pleased to be here this morning to talk to students regarding media and law. And we are told that the students want to learn how to write legal articles. And is there any career opening in legal journalism? The two parts of my presentation. The first part is about relationship between media and judiciary and how things pan out at the intersection of these two important institutions. And the second part about writing legal articles. I don't know how much time have been given to me, but still I'll try to be precise and to the point. And maybe once I make certain basic submissions to you, then I can ask you to ask questions, and then we can have clarity on the subject. The first part is media and judiciary. Both are very important institutions so far as Indian democracy is concerned. Both have very important roles to play. The media, as we know, it's called the fourth estate. And without having a free media, no democracy can survive, let alone thriving. Similarly, the role of judiciary is very important. primarily, judiciary's role is to adjudicate upon disputes between individuals, maybe individual and institutions, or maybe individuals and the state, sometimes between two or more states, sometimes center and the state. So the judiciary's role as an arbiter, or rather final arbiter of the disputes between various parties, it's very important. By and large, both these institutions, they have played their roles very effectively and efficiently. But there are certain areas where there are some problems with both the institutions. And this is where the media as an institution plays a very vital role. The first is the role of the judiciary. The nature of judiciary and the nature of work they discharge, it becomes important for them to act as a seeker of truth, because unless you know the truth, you cannot dispense justice. So their entire training is about finding truth, what is true, and then accordingly discharge their duties. But the role of media is slightly different, in the sense media is not in the business of finding truth. We are in the business of finding fault with the system, because media's role is to inform, educate, entertain the society. Its role is to set the agenda for debate in the society. Its role is to act as watchdog for democracy. And in the process, it acts as a sort of interface between the society and the state system. So whatever is happening in the society, we show it to the state. And whatever is happening within the state system, we show it to the society. Sometimes media or media persons rather, they carry on with this wrong notion or impression that they can offer solutions to problems. We are not in the business of offering solutions. We are in the business of finding fault with the system. And then once we find fault with the system, we highlight it. So in the process of highlighting a problem, we trigger the correctional mechanism. We don't correct any problems, but we trigger the correctional mechanism. Say, suppose something is reported in the media, suppose there is a road out there which has potholes. So media reports it, maybe some judge is going, he has seen it straight away, or maybe he has read a news report, he'll take cognizance of the report and issue directions for correcting the problem. The second is somebody might raise, after reading the newspaper, maybe a politician raises it in the house, maybe assembly or Lok Sabha or maybe local body. Accordingly, it will be corrected. Maybe some bureaucrat reads the newspaper. Those of you who are aware about the system of various organizations, every organization has a public relations department where all the newspaper clippings go there. They scrutinize it, and accordingly, whosoever is responsible for that news or relating issues relating to that, it's forwarded to them and they can take correctional measures. So media is not in the business of correcting things. We are in the business of finding fault with the system. And once we highlight the fault, it is for the system to take corrective measures. So this is one. But the problem is we are also finding fault with the judiciary. And why? Because judiciary has, apart from its traditional role of acting as an arbiter of disputes, it has taken upon itself various other roles because of the proliferation of PILs. So judges are also making laws. Judges are issuing directions to the executive, and in many cases they are assuming the role of the executive because of the PILs. So if you are taking the role of the executive or the role of the legislature, then the criticism which we as media persons used to direct against the executive or the legislature, we are directing against them as well. But because of the nature of the functioning of the judiciary, they are not used to taking criticism. So there are certain conflict zones where role of media and judiciary, it's coming into conflict. I gave you the example of a media report which supposedly court is taking cognizance and then corrective measures are taken. That is the complementary role of media and judiciary. We are highlighting it, judiciary taking cognizance, and then things are being corrected. In the process, people at large are the beneficiaries. But if media and judiciary, they come in conflict, because in many cases what is happening is when media is highlighting certain issues, maybe of corruption in public life, in bureaucracy, or among the politicians in the government, then people are getting relief, because we are weeding out, in the process we are weeding out the corrupt from the system. But if the two organizations which are complementing with each other in order to provide certain relief to the people at large, if they themselves come in conflict, then this process stops, and then politicians get benefited because they get respite from the constant pressure from the media and the judiciary, which many a time they act in tandem. So what is happening is, because of the activism of the judiciary, where they have taken upon the role of the executive or the legislature to a great extent in many cases, the criticism is getting redirected to the judiciary, and because of the fact that they are not used to taking criticism from the media, this is the conflict zone. And in many cases, the judiciary is taking action against the media, and sometimes we have not seen many cases where media persons have been sent to jail per se for contempt or any other action, but they are being issued notices, they are being harassed in the sense they are asked to appear before courts, and once, twice, thrice, and this is sort of harassment, because judiciary wants you to mend your ways, don't touch us. And media, by its nature, our training is to find fault, so we are finding fault with them and we are highlighting things. I'll give you 2-3 examples of such conflict. One was a case in which in Gujarat judiciary there was corruption. Around 2010 or 12, or before that, I suppose, I don't exactly remember the year. It was much before that. Justice V.N. Khare was the CJI, must be around 2004-05. There was a case in which Z News conducted a sting operation in Gujarat, in which the court complex in Meghani Nagar in Ahmedabad, there was a magistrate who used to take money to issue warrants against individuals. So Z News conducted a sting operation, and they procured a warrant against the CJI, the president, Supreme Court Bar Association president, and a Supreme Court judge. So 4 people, including the then president APJ Abdul Kalam. And on behalf of Z News, Mr. Harish Salve appeared before the Supreme Court in the morning around 10:30. There is mentioning. So in mentioning hours, Mr. Salve appeared before the court, and I was present in the court, and we were all astonished when Mr. Salve said, "My lord, I have a very important matter to mention, and a court in Ahmedabad has issued an NBW against you." So a lawyer telling the CJI that a lower court, a magistrate, has issued NBW against you, the entire court was stunned. And then Justice Khare asked, "What are you talking, Mr. Salve?" And then Mr. Salve said, "My lord, not just you. There is a warrant against the president also. And there is warrant against Mr. B.P. Singh. Justice B.P. Singh was a senior judge in the Supreme Court. And also against Mr. R.K. Jain, who is no more, he was the Supreme Court Bar Association president." And then the entire proceedings took a different turn. The Supreme Court asked the Gujarat High Court to conduct an inquiry on the administrative side. There was a CBI probe ordered, and then At the request of Mr. Salve, the Supreme Court allowed Z News to telecast that sting operation. It so happened that after some time, the judge was immediately after maybe a couple of months, the judge was suspended. The judge who had issued NBW, and then after a couple of years, the judge was reinstated, and the Supreme Court started asking Z News to file an apology, unconditional apology for scandalizing the judiciary. We all know under Section 2C of the Contempt of Courts Act 1971, scandalizing the judiciary is one of the grounds for criminal contempt. And the court, the Supreme Court itself has powers under Article 129 of the Constitution. It has power of contempt. And then for several years, the Z News Mumbai Bureau Chief used to come to Delhi to attend the proceedings. I have followed it personally till the time Mr. Justice K.G. Balakrishnan was the CJI. But after around 2012 or something, I have not seen that case listed for hearing in the Supreme Court. I don't know what happened to that case. But here is a case where the media highlighted problems within the judiciary, how a particular judge was taking money and mechanically issuing NBW against individuals. He would not even examine the name or the address, because the name of the president was there and the address was Raisina Hills. The name of the CJI was there and the address was his official residence. And similar was the case of two other gentlemen. But the Supreme Court, after some time, it started asking Z News to, it reinstated that judge, and then it started asking the media organization to file an apology. And I don't know what happened to that case. Now I don't see that case coming up. But here is a case where the media highlighted a problem in the judiciary and they have taken a completely different turn. But in the year 2007, NDTV conducted a sting operation in the infamous BMW case, in which the allegation was that the prosecution and the defense, they were colluding with each other in order to sabotage the case, to protect the accused, who happened to be grandson of a Navy retired admiral. After the sting operation, the Delhi High Court took so moto cognizance, and the Mr. R.K. Anand, who was representing the accused, he was suspended. His bar membership was suspended. His seniorship was withdrawn. He was a senior advocate, and he was a very famous advocate because he used to defend former Prime Minister Narasimha Rao in many of the cases which Mr. Rao faced. So his seniorship was withdrawn, and there were several other orders passed. Finally, Mr. R.K. Anand, and there was another gentleman who was a special public prosecutor in the, first full name I'm forgetting. There was another gentleman who was a special prosecutor in that case. He was also taken to task. Both went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court by and large upheld the Delhi High Court's verdict. And Mr. R.K. Anand's seniorship was not returned. His suspension was revoked with certain conditions after some time, after a few months or something. And Supreme Court upheld NDTV's right to conduct a sting operation to expose this corruption. So in a case where lawyers were allegedly involved, the Supreme Court was clear that action has to be taken. But in a case where a judge was involved, the Supreme Court, after some time, it changed its tune, and they were asking the media organizations to apologize. So there is a dichotomy in the stand taken by the judiciary when it comes to judges. And I can give you umpteen number of examples because in the recent past there have been several cases involving judges. Judges from Punjab and Haryana High Court, judges from Calcutta High Court, judges from Sikkim. There are several cases in which there have been cases against various judges. In many cases, they faced removal proceedings. In many cases, they faced prosecution. But the Supreme Court's stand is slightly different. And this is where the problem lies. And finally, because of this, the judiciary has been criticizing the media for crossing the Lakshman Rekha, for what they call as media trial, that media is conducting parallel trial. I'm not saying media is completely what you call in Hindi, doodh ka dhula. But in most of the cases, media, so far as reporting on judiciary is concerned, media has been very balanced. I have done it myself for more than 30 years. So media has been very balanced so far as reporting on the judiciary is concerned, because most of the media persons who write on judiciary, they are trained legal professionals, so they know their limits. But the funny part is, while criticizing the media for crossing the Lakshman Rekha, for conducting media trial and so many other things, when the judiciary itself is in trouble, they will go to the media. I hope you remember, 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court, in January 2018, they held that famous or infamous press conference in which they attacked the then CJI, Justice Deepak Mishra. And they raised several issues regarding the functioning of the Supreme Court on the administrative side. Because when nobody listens to you and you are somehow troubled by the system, you have nowhere to go except the media. So media's role is very important, and the role of media and judiciary both are important. When they complement each other, it becomes easier for the society to, rather to breathe easier, because they are keeping the criminals, the corrupt politicians at bay. And they act as a sort of check on them. When media and judiciary, they are fighting with each other, the rest of the elements which we talked about, they become very fearless, and then it becomes difficult for us as citizens to survive. So this is the introductory part regarding the relationship between media and judiciary. So if we understand this, it becomes easier for us to write on law, or as media persons, because I consider you to be of my fraternity, because I am also a lawyer, but I write on law, and I have been acting as a legal journalist for the last 30 years. The second part is, do you have any questions? Any student, do you have any questions? Yes. I'm not negating that. No, there is no. The judiciary has certain powers over the media in the sense that if there is a dispute relating to the media, we'll go to the judiciary. But as I just told you, when judiciary does not get justice within the system, they also come to the media. No, not hypocrisy of the system. The system is, it's about constitutionalism, where no organ of the state or no individual will have enough power to become a despot. One organ of the state is made deliberately dependent upon the other. This is how constitutionalism works. Constitutionalism is not about following the constitution. Constitutionalism is about placing limitations on various organs of the state and those manning the state systems. So here, judiciary is not above the law. Judiciary is also accountable. As media persons, we will seek accountability from the judiciary also. That's our job. That's a different thing, that we will work within our own limits. We will not attribute, sometimes while writing about politicians, we are somehow casual. While writing about judiciary, we are not casual. We check, cross-check, and further cross-check facts about judiciary before we put it to print. So it's not about one being above the other. It is about discharging your own functions in order to what we know as the system of check and to make the system of checks and balances function well. This is not about one being above the other. Yes. I'll say rather it does. There is, I hope you have, you are exposed to what is this Cardozo's reading, Nature of Judicial Process. Have you read it? Cardozo was a former Supreme Court judge of the US. This, you can Google it, you will get it. Cardozo, I suppose Benjamin Cardozo, Nature of Judicial Process. You will get maybe around 40 pages, if some lecture he delivered. So it's not that the judges are not influenced by what media writes. They are. But the training, judicial training requires them to get over the biases and get over the so-called media influence. As media persons also, we have also certain opinions, but while writing a news report, it should not reflect in the news report. So it's about professional training. Everybody has certain personal predilections, biases, but those biases and predilections have to be kept aside. That's about professional training. Yes.
Good morning, sir. You talked about the Gujarat case, the Z News sting operation. From my exposure to law and my exposure to the media, I've always seen these two professions as they tread somewhat closer to the government and political machinery. So it is somewhere the professionals have to tread carefully because they're constantly at risk of talking about controversial issues or going into sub-judice issues. So in today's political atmosphere,
writing about sub-judice, there is no law that bars it. Yes. In fact, Supreme Court gives us accreditation to write about sub-judice matters. They invite us and we are accredited journalists of the Supreme Court. So there is a system which allows writing on sub-judice matters. So there is no law on sub-judice and there is no bar on writing on pending matters.
But as both the fields, law and media, they tread somewhat at the edge of morality, at questions of morality and ethics and very controversial issues. They work closely with government institutions, with political institutions. How do we balance being truly neutral and the expression of our true expression, freedom of expression, with not actually going beyond our limits? What are the lines of our profession? How do we balance that?
See, the first checks and balance, the first thing is diversity of the media. We have English news channels, Hindi news channels, there are various regional news channels, business channels, there are lots of news channels run by various individuals or groups. So you will find that some channel, even if they are taking pro-government stand on certain issues, there are others who are criticizing the government on the same issue. So this is where, if as a neutral person I listen to one channel and watch the other channel, and then maybe I'm reading also newspapers, I'll get a sense of what is right or wrong. So the best way is to allow diversity of the media. So if you have diverse media landscape, you will have media freedom. That's the best way. Yes.
So adding on to the question about media trials, Do you sometimes think that media trials often violate one's principle of free trials? And in the now age social media journalism, do you think that the credibility of media trials have reduced, and what are the responsibilities one may have while publishing a news or even posting something online regarding this?
See, online posting, it's very difficult. It's called UGC, user-generated content. So user-generated content, every second, millions of people are writing something on social media. So it's very difficult to check that. So that's one. Second is, print media has been, by and large, it has been very, very balanced. You will not see any misreporting by the print media, by and large. TV media, in the last 1 decade, we have witnessed, they will show somebody, some accused on the screen, and he is the man who has done this. This is wrong, because the man is only facing allegations, and in many cases, the allegations have been proved to be wrong after maybe 6 months or a couple of years. So to paint somebody as a convict while the person is only facing accusations by the police, that is wrong, which is not done by the print media. We are very clear about police alleged that such and such thing. So everything is attributed to the police. The TV media, in many cases, they have violated this norm. And in many cases, they have been taken to task. Maybe TV medium is a new medium. So maybe in the next, maybe 1 decade or so, they'll mature, or maybe it will take a couple of lawsuits to force them to mend their ways. But media trial, it does exist. In many cases, it has harmed the accused.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
My question is not just to you, but all the technical. So when you decided to join the journalism, so you guys must be having some values and ideals of yours for joining this profession. And now, like, looking at this field in today's timeline, today's generation, with all these factors that is heavily influencing the media in general, so do you believe that those values, those ideals still exist in this profession, or has it changed a lot? Like, what's your stance on this?
See, ideals, they do exist, but it's always under pressure because of the pressure of deadline, pressure of competition. There are various kinds of pressures. So those pressures, they do take a toll on the so-called ideals you mentioned. So far as I am concerned, journalism is my fifth choice in terms of career. So I'm acting backward to go to my first choice. And I did not apply to become a journalist. I just straight away, in fact, at IAMC, I was a student, which I wrote to them that I don't want to continue. After 4-5 months, I quit IAMC. I didn't have that much patience. But I straight away barged in PTI office, talked to the editor, who was some South Indian gentleman, and he offered me a job. So this is how I became a legal correspondent. So things do take turn like this. It's, for me, it was surprising. I went there and he offered me a job, so I got it.
Can we take some of the questions that then we can have a discussion. The entire panel, you can choose.
Definitely.
Just last thing, just any questions you have, because I am ending this. Just last thing, organizers, please assign time to us, because then unless you assign time, so we have time, we know this is how, so accordingly we'll package it. Otherwise it becomes slightly longest.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you deeply, sir. Your interaction has illuminated the very heart of today's theme, how the law and the press are two pillars of the same democratic structure.
Thank you, sir. As for the question answers, we will take the question answers at the end. Our next resource person is the one of the most versatile journalists in India today. A man who has reported across newspapers, magazines, television, and digital media for the country's leading brands. Mr. Jatin is the former executive editor of Jagran Media and currently heads fact-checking and OSINT operations at Vishwas News, India's first Hindi language fact-checking website. Traveling fellow from the University of Westminster, London, and an ICSJ Knight Fellow. He has also taught media laws and journalism at the Times School of Media. He holds an LLB and a postgraduate diploma in cyber laws from NALSA, making him uniquely placed to speak on media law and the evolving challenges of digital journalism. He is currently pursuing a PhD in mass communication focusing on misinformation. Sir, we are delighted to have you. Please address us, sir.
Am I audible? Thank you for this opportunity and thank you for the introduction. Though I must point out that that is about 6 months old. I left Jagran in September and I've been on my own since. I'm more of a freelance academic now and pursuing research, and I write here and there. So my topic for the day today is media and the law interface. Now, even within the media, there is an interface between journalism and the media. So often we use the words media and journalism interchangeably. However, that is not the case. Journalism is what deepens democracy, just as law does, just as establishment of the rule of law happens through legal practice and through judiciary and the adjudication. Similarly, deepening of democracy, as my friend Mr. Satya Prakash said, that journalists basically act as the bridge between the people and the establishment, or the people who are powerless and the powers that be, right? So journalism serves that function, and it needs the media to deliver that journalism to the people. So sometimes there is a conflict even within the media between journalism and the medium. And because media is currently under a crisis that he also alluded to, I call it the crisis of commerce and credibility. Because as we are known as the fourth pillar, the other three pillars are parts of the state. And we question the state on behalf of the people. And these are funded by the state or by the state exchequer. The media is the only pillar of democracy which has to fend for itself, which has to finance itself. And because of that leads to several kinds of problems. Media ownership also determines what the media serves. So as he mentioned, and as we were discussing, in the VC's, chambers before we came here, that there is smaller newsrooms these days are serving better independent journalism because their liabilities are less. So this model of basically depending on the advertiser for revenue to run the business of the media has its drawbacks. When the advertiser wants to influence what the media will serve, journalism will suffer. So that's the first point of friction, that even within the media, you have to make a clear distinction between journalism and the media. The media is only serving you journalism. It's actually the journalists who are doing the job, but they can feel the squeeze when the media ownership wants, because journalists are also paid by the media. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. Then, so media, law, journalism, they all basically work towards deepening democracy, towards helping the delivery of the welfare state to the people. And when the legal system weakens, or when the media system weakens, society moves away from democracy. So there's a dotted line. While there is a direct line between journalism and democracy, between law and democracy, there's a dotted line between media and democracy. Media can also be used to weaken democracy. But journalism, if it stays true to its course, it cannot weaken democracy. It can be suppressed, it can be eliminated. India, as we know, 3rd of May was World Press Freedom Day, and India's, position in the world rankings of the Press Freedom Index has now fallen to 157. But we continue to be a democracy, we continue to push back. However, these are challenges, these are challenges, these are not just sectoral challenges. It's not the media that is under threat, but if media freedom goes down or if press freedom goes down, then democracy is under threat. So this is something as law students you need to know, and there are also teachers of law and probably jurists also in this room. So the pushback has to come from us because it's our responsibility. We've been entrusted this responsibility, whether as journalists or as jurists or as students or practitioners of law, to push back, to restore to the ideal of the welfare state, and therefore we must push back. Now, media and law interface, we were talking about. Namaskar. So may I resume? Okay. So the media sector is heavily regulated. First of all, there are a lot of laws that apply to the media, as opposed to the social media, which now everybody talks about. Everybody, there was a reference to user-generated content. Unlike user-generated content, every word that comes to you through the regulated media or the legacy media, every word is verified. Every word, its import is weighed before it is communicated. Unlike the social media, where you publish first and then the reader or the user selects, here there is a process of editing, there is a process of gatekeeping. So that is the first check. So if I talk about how law influences the media, so there is an entire gamut of laws or regulations, including self-regulation, that come into play. So Article 19(1)(a), which accords freedom of speech and expression to every citizen, also applies to journalism, also applies to the media, and there are no special privileges available to the media under Article 19(1)(a). It applies to all citizens, so all journalists are citizens, and that's all. So unlike the EU, which has a Freedom of the Press Act, or the US, which has a Freedom of the Press Act, here we do not have a Freedom of the Press Act. However, because we were continuously contributing to the democratic project and deepening the roots of democracy in this country after independence, there have been successive rulings from the 25 high courts and the Supreme Court that have expanded 19(1)(a) to almost mean freedom of the press. However, this was because of our conduct, because of the way we were conducting our affairs with responsibility, with morality, within an ethical framework. If we follow the reverse path, which is taking democracy away from the masses or only pandering to the powers that be, then we will see, as Mr. Satya Prakash said, that TV might correct its course after a couple of strong rulings come out against what we do on television. Similarly, if in the media at large, if we are going to not be the messengers between the state and the masses, our powers that have been accorded to us under 19(1)(a) will slowly be withdrawn, and there will be more restrictions on us. Now, talking about the regulation of the regulation framework for the media, it is actually a 3 or 4 tiered structured. I would like to call it an inverted pyramid, because inverted pyramid is something, because you guys are also interested in writing for the media. So we use the inverted pyramid in the media or in journalism to tell our story to the people, in the sense that the most important aspects of a news report or reporting on an event or a phenomenon, the most important aspects are written upfront on the top, which is called the lead. And then as you move down the news story or the news article, you will realize that unless it follows a donut structure in which you start with an argument, you buttress your argument with several mini arguments and come back to the main point. In a news report, you see that the most important things are already served to the audiences or to the readers very quickly. So the 5 W and H of journalism, which is who, what, where, why, when, and how, are served to you in the first 2 paragraphs or even in the first paragraph. But when I talk about the regulation of the media pyramid, the order of eminence does not go down. But I just created the structure to talk about how the media regulates. So the first layer is the organizational level checks and balances. When a reporter goes out, and there are several reporters, all of us, fortunately, have started our careers as reporters, and we continue to report actively. When a reporter goes out to cover an event or a phenomenon or write about something, they pick up information from the ground and they verify it before they put it in their report. Then the report is checked by the desk. So there is a layer of correction and finding the gaps. The reporter reports to his or her superiors, the chief reporter or the chief of bureau. They also find the gaps in the information that the reporter has collected. Only then it goes to the desk. The desk then clears it up for language and for factual inaccuracies. These inaccuracies are removed. Additional information is sought, and then it goes to the editorial management or the group of editors who finally approve everything before it gets published. So there are numbers of layers of checks and balances, and the same thing is repeated in television or in digital media, depending on how credible the particular newsroom or the news organization is. So this is the first level, which is the organizational level. Then we have within the organization, we also have style sheets. We also have certain do's and don'ts. For instance, there are several news organizations which have decided that we will not, irrespective of the gains or the ends, we will not do sting operations, because sting operations always lie in the gray area. In fact, if you go to the Press Council of India's website, you will find a 140-page booklet called the Norms of Journalistic Conduct, which has a very robust section on sting operations. In fact, all of you should read that, because it comes under delegated legislation. So you must all read those norms, which basically set out the framework for how journalists should operate. Then we have the self-regulatory bodies at the industry level. For print, we have the Press Council of India Act, 1978, which established this body to, one, defend the independence of the media, and secondly, to ensure that that the norms and the ethics of journalism and the values of journalism are preserved, and the procedures and the processes are followed, right? Then in television, we have the Cable TV Networks Act, under which the NBDA is established. Again, it's a self-regulatory body. It has some punitive powers, and you have the program code. In digital, we have several self-regulatory bodies, such as the DigiPub. So basically, the industry coming together and telling society or telling the authorities that we will take care of what is going wrong, rather than you regulate us, we will regulate ourselves. And that system has worked very well. The checks and balances, both at the organizational level and then at the sectoral level, they have worked very well. And finally, then above that, we have media specific laws. So we have the Cable TV Networks Act, we have the program codes, we have the PCI Act, we have the IT Act, and we have the IT Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code under the rules of 2021. And also in print, we have the PRP Act, which came about in 2023, which replaced the 150-year-old PRB Act. We have the PCI Act, of course, which came in 1978. So remember, this comes under the in the backdrop of the emergency, in which we saw a clampdown on the press, and there were certain newspapers, because they were asked to show their editorial material to a joint secretary sitting in the I&B ministry, many newspapers chose to publish blank editorials rather than submit to censorship. We decided that we will send this message to the people that we are being censored, therefore we are not serving you anything on those pages, right? In TV, you have the Cable TV Act, the Prasar Bharati Act, TRAI, which came into being in 1997. It regulates, the tariffs and the distribution of the airwaves. So we have multiple layers of regulation, and finally we have the top layer. The laws that govern society apply equally to us. So sections of the BNS or the BNSS, for example, defamation is something that we get slapped by a lot of defamation suits, which was earlier 499 to 505 of the IPC. Now it's 356 of the BNS. The same thing has just been picked up, repeated ad verbatim. Even the illustrations have not changed. It's just that the number of sections has been crunched, right? And subsections have been created. So we are over-regulated in a certain sense. Then to say for people that the media is on its own, or it is having a free run, that is not the case with the regulation. However, we see constantly violations of these laws on air every evening, because, as I said earlier, because we chose the advertiser pays model for revenue, and the governments remain the largest advertisers. In order to survive, many media organizations, they pander to either corporate interests or to political interests to stay in the business. So this is something that as a society we need to attack at the roots of. People must pay for the information that they're consuming, particularly information that is useful for them. And information in democracies is vital, because we make our choices based on the information that we get. So if we get polluted information or misinformation, we are obviously going to make the wrong kind of choices. So this is something that we as journalists and you as people in the practice of law need to push back on, because we are more privileged than the other sections of society. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. Your insights into digital media fact-checking and media law have really opened a new dimension for our students to explore. Moving on to the next.
An experienced person brings a rare combination of academic training and journalistic rigor. Mr. Sandeep is Associate Editor at The Hindu, India's most trusted broadsheet. Trained in law, sociology, English, economics from the Delhi School of Economics, he writes on policy, politics, and aviation, and has delivered talks as a TED speaker. With bylines spanning decades at The Hindu, he brings an analytical depth to journalism that bridges the worlds of the newsroom and the academy. He is truly someone who understands the space between law and media from first principles. So, we warmly invite you to address us.
Thank you very much. Just a small correction. I've done sociology from Delhi School of Economics, not economics. I've only graduated in economics. Well, a very warm welcome to this session. My session is called Legal Ink, Publishing in Print Media. So before I start the session, I mean, it's essentially about communicating legal policy. So before I get into the topic, let me say that I'm here this morning because I didn't have too many stories to chase. Now you must be wondering, stories? Why should a journalist be running after stories? For Jatin or Satya, or, friends, other friends, journalist friends, they will understand that when we talk about stories, we actually mean news reports, which are factual, which is actually, which have actually happened. But, it's a jargon that we use in our profession, and exactly the same thing happens for lawyers when they talk about suo motu, pro bono, sub judice, I'm going to file an SLP. So essentially, while all of you, law teachers and students who know the terms, they use very frequently, but we forget that the person who is at the other end, at the receiving end, may not really be knowing what is pro bono, or fighting a case free, or suo motu, or taking cognizance on its own, or a special leave petition, or what's the difference between a special leave petition or a public interest litigation. So these are technical terms. So while you are trained in law and to use these terms in court, communication is very important for a lawyer, not just for the bench or not just before the bench, but also while speaking to the public at large. So I'm just going to break down 4 points in terms of how you should frame your communication while you try to communicate to the public at large, maybe through mediums, through media, through newspapers, or even speaking to, speaking at these public events. First, there should be clarity in language. Drop jargon and explain things in a language that anyone can understand. The law often appears intimidating, not because people are incapable of understanding it, but because it is communicated in an inaccessible language. Legal writing and courtroom arguments may require technical precision, that's all right. But public communication requires simplicity. If a citizen cannot understand what a judgment or a bill or a policy means, then the communication has failed. A lawyer speaking to the public must translate complex legal concepts into everyday language without diluting accuracy. Instead of saying the matter is sub judice or the court has taken suo motu cognizance, we should explain what it practically means for an ordinary person, that the matter is currently being heard by a court. It's the same thing. The matter is sub judice or it's being heard by a court. But it is just becomes simpler. Simplicity builds trust, and trust is essential for the credibility of the legal profession. The second point that I want to come to while you're writing, in newspapers or communicating legal policy, give the bigger picture. Do not focus on the nitty-gritty of the law. Explain how it will impact a common person. How will a particular law affect you, the citizen? Every law exists within a certain political and a social context. A legal policy is never about clauses, sections, or constitutional interpretation. It ultimately shapes people's lives. So while discussing law, lawyers should not remain confined to technicalities alone. Ask larger questions. Will this law make access to justice easier or harder? Will it affect freedom of speech? Will it affect my privacy? Will it lead to better employment opportunities, education, or welfare? For instance, when discussing data protection laws, the issue is not merely about regulatory compliance. It's also how it protects your privacy. When you're discussing labor laws, it's not just about statutes. It's also about workers' rights, their livelihoods. Connecting law to lived realities actually helps both the lawyer in terms of explaining the legalities behind a certain policy, as well as the citizen who understands a policy better. The third point that I want to say is map the change. When you talk about a law or a policy, always keep a reference point to explain how things were earlier and how they are now. People understand change best through comparison. when a new law, amendment, or a judgment is introduced, it is important to explain what existed earlier and what exactly has changed. Without context, the significance of the reform is not lost. It is often lost. I'll repeat that sentence again. Without that context, the significance of the reform is often lost. And I would also like to give you an example. For example, a few years ago, before the Motor Vehicles Act was amended, for any kind of traffic violation, the maximum penalty was 100 rupees. Highest was, I think, about 500 rupees. Now it's about 10,000. If you're drunk and if you're driving, it's 10,000. If you jump a red light, it's 2,000, 1,500 at least. So, the penalties have multiplied. So when you talk about it, you can say that, look, पहले 100 रुपए में कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता था. But now to shell out 10,000 for drunk driving, you'll be careful. People will, instead of driving, instead of being behind the wheels in a drunken state, he would rather pay, and then if get caught, he will have to pay 10,000. He would rather pay $1,000 or 500 rupees to a cab operator, and he will use a cab, a taxi. So, as I said, that communication becomes effective when you answer 3 simple questions. What was the position earlier? What is the new position? Why was the change introduced? This approach not only makes legal developments easier to follow, but also allows citizens to critically assess whether the reform strengthens or weakens the democratic process. A lawyer who can clearly map change performs an important public service by making legal evolution. And the last point that I want to say, by choosing to communicate in simple terms, in simple language, you're actually creating aware and responsible citizens. In some ways, you're helping create aware citizens and nation building. Legal communication is not merely information, it is also about public awareness and democratic participation. Citizens who understand their rights and duties are better equipped to engage with institutions, question authority, seek accountability. Only when you know what your rights are, which law gives you what kind of rights, only then you can also see, as citizens, you may hear that Parliament passed this bill or that bill, and this is the kind of rights that have been bestowed upon the citizens. But if we as citizens do not know what these rights are and how we can exercise them on the ground, we can never hold the powers. We can never seek accountability from authority. So this is important. It's important that you make these laws work for the citizens, so that you can seek accountability. Whether it is explaining consumer rights, constitutional protections, procedures for filing complaints, lawyers contribute to building legal awareness in society. At the same time, responsible communication is equally important. In an age of misinformation and social media outrage, lawyers and legal commentators carry an extra responsibility to communicate facts accurately and avoid sensationalism. As Jatin had pointed out, that in social media, anything is put up without verifying, without fact checking. That is something that we don't do. We measure our words very carefully, and it goes through several layers of checks before an authorized mainstream legacy news outlet puts it out. Even on social media, you will not see rumors which are put up. The goal should not just be to win arguments, but to strengthen public understanding of the law and reinforce faith in democratic institutions. So, as Jatin had said, we can take questions later. That's all I have. So, these were the 4 broad points that I could think of that most of you should keep in mind while trying to communicate about legal policy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your insights into the intersection of law, policy, and journalism have given us so much to reflect on.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, it's my pleasure to invite worthy Registrar, Professor Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, to share a few words with this august gathering. Sir.
गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन, नमस्कार। मैं अभी एक्चुअली सीधे जयपुर से आ रहा था, मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था कोई प्रोग्राम हो रहा है। गणेश का 3-4 बार कॉल आया, मैंने कहा कि अच्छा, मैंने ये देखा था ब्रोशर तो बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा था कि सारे मीडिया से लोग आए हुए हैं एंड आई थिंक इट इज़ अ मैटर ऑफ प्राउड टू ऑल ऑफ अस from National Law University that our eminent speakers from media, they have joined today, especially Shri Satya Prakash ji, Jatin Gandhi ji, Sandeep Phukan ji, Neeraj ji, Mukesh Tondon ji and Singh ji. Even I used to read articles जो भी आप लोग के न्यूज़ कवरेज आते हैं एंड आप सबके और and I'm in personally in touch with all of you also. First of all, मैं ये बताना चाहूँगा कि how this university is different from other universities, क्योंकि जो आपका एजुकेशनल सिटी है यहाँ की सोनीपत की, यहाँ पर आई थिंक बहुत से प्राइवेट एंड आपके गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं। तो नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी है एक, तो यहाँ पर ऑल इंडिया के स्टूडेंट्स आते हैं। इट इज़ बेसिकली नेशनल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स जो आपको अगर हरियाणा की स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की किसी यूनिवर्सिटी में दिखेगी, आई थिंक इट इज़ नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी की। मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स आर फ्रॉम, ठीक है, आपके जैसे जो राजस्थान, यूपी, जो नियर बाई स्टेट से हैं, लेकिन नॉर्थ ईस्ट से भी स्टूडेंट्स हैं, सदर्न पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री से हैं, फिर आपके कर्नाटका और तमिलनाडु से भी हैं, और असम, आपके जो वेस्ट बंगाल, सब। तो एक तो ये एक इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है, अगर किसी चीज़ को अगर आपको स्प्रेड करना है ऑल ओवर कंट्री में, तो NLU इज़ द बेस्ट फोरम वेयर वी कैन एसोसिएट. Even we can do future programs in collaboration with all of you also, because you people are the leading newspapers also. Then second thing is that कि जो हमारे यहाँ स्टूडेंट की क्वालिटी आ रही है बिल्कुल डिफरेंट। मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, ग्लोबल जनरल का तो पता, ठीक है, अगर कल को कोई ग्लोबल जनरल के यहाँ बैठा हो तो मेरे ऊपर डिफेमेटरी सूट वो डाल देगा, लेकिन मैं आपको बताऊं ग्लोबल जनरल में मेरा जो एनालिसिस है, मैं आपको बताऊं जितने भी आपके बड़े फैमिली के बच्चे हैं जिनका कहीं एडमिशन नहीं होता, आपको ग्लोबल जनरल में मिल जाएगा। क्या उनका सिस्टम है, क्या उनका मॉडस ऑपरेंड है, मुझे आज तक नहीं समझ में आया। टीचर्स उन्होंने क्या कर दिया, विदेश के ला दिया। ठीक है, एक दो, एक्चुअली आई डिड माई ट्रेनिंग इन लंदन स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स, तो जब मैं गया लंदन स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स तो मैंने ये देखा है कि उनके जो कोलेबोरेशन हैं वो आपके ग्लोबल जनरल से हैं और इनसे हैं, आपके अशोका से हैं, और इंडिया के आपकी जितनी भी पब्लिक यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं वो उसमें है ही नहीं है। उसके पीछे रीजन है, हमारा जो स्टूडेंट है वो बेचारा लोन में आ रहा है, लोन लेकर के आ रहा है, वो क्योंकि वो मेरिट से आ रहा है। जो मेरिट वाला बच्चा है वो ये गारंटी नहीं है कि फाइनेंशियली वो वेल ऑफ है कि नहीं है। अगर आप देखेंगे इस क्लास में अगर 40 स्टूडेंट्स होंगे अभी अगर इस रूम में, तो 40 में से मेरे ख्याल से 10 to 12 बच्चे ऐसे होंगे जिनका लोन चल रहा होगा। लेकिन जो क्वालिटी हमारे यहाँ आ रही है वो किसी के है ही नहीं है। तो मेरा एक रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि हमारा जो कंपैरिजन है बिल्कुल एक मतलब डिफरेंट ही लेवल का कंपैरिजन रहे। और सबसे बड़ी बात कि आप सब लोग इस चीज को समझते हैं क्योंकि आप लोग खुद ही बड़े इंटेलेक्चुअल हैं। मैं देख रहा था कि जो जो बातें सर अभी कह रहे थे, क्योंकि मैं अपने जो है गांधी सर के उसमें ही मैंने ज्वाइन किया, तो जैसे सर ने बोला कि जो मीडिया इज हैवीली रेगुलेटेड, आपने बताया कि सोशल मीडिया पे अभी चेक ही नहीं है। तो ये सारी चीज़ें जो आप बता रहे हैं, मतलब जो इंट्रोस्पेक्शंस और जो जो डिस्कशंस हो रहे हैं, दीज आर वेरी रेलिवेंट थिंग्स एंड आई थिंक स्टूडेंट्स में ये सारी चीज़ें जानी चाहिए। क्योंकि जो मीडिया का जो ऐसा नहीं है, मीडिया इज 100% रेगुलेटेड। आप मैं बताऊं कि मीडिया की अगर कोई न्यूज आती है तो जो न्यूज का कवरेज देता है उसकी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बनती है कि उनकी ट्रुथ, उसकी जो वेरिसिटी चेक करने की, अदरवाइज पीपल विल फाइल ए केस अगेंस्ट देम। और एंड दिस इज द रीजन दैट द मीडिया इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इंस्टीट्यूशन। आज मीडिया से सबको डर लगता है। मैं आपको मैं बताऊं कि बिकॉज आई एम इन टच विथ ब्यूरोक्रेसी, आई एम इन टच विथ जुडिशरी ऑल्सो। एक हमारे जज साहब हैं, वो एक दिन हमसे कहते हैं, हाई कोर्ट के जज साहब हैं, बोले यार वो एक मैंने कल जजमेंट दिया और आज वो मीडिया में उसका जो है दूसरा वर्जन दिखाया जा रहा है। एटलीस्ट की मतलब आप ये देखो, इसका मतलब कितना आदमी कितना सजग है अपनी चीजों को लेकर के। दिस इज द रीजन दैट द मीडिया इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इंस्टीट्यूशन। और जो भी हमारे एमिनेंट लोग हैं, आप लोग इनकी बातों को सुने और एंड यू कैन रेज योर ओन क्वेश्चंस आल्सो। और मेरा बीइंग ए रजिस्ट्रार ऑफ द इंस्टीट्यूशन, हमारे ऑनरेबल वाइस चांसलर सर का भी विजन है कि हम लोग स्टूडेंट्स को एक इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ के लिए जितनी भी आपके सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, ऐसा नहीं कि आपके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लॉ, आईपीसी, क्योंकि आप जब किसी इंटरव्यू बोर्ड में जाते हो, यू शुड बी वेरी क्लियर कि वहां पर दे कैन आस्क क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम एनी फील्ड। देयरफॉर यू शुड हैव ए वेरी ब्रॉड बेस्ड नॉलेज so that you should be in position to tackle all these particular questions. So this is the reason why we are organizing these particular programs, seminar, conferences, कि आपका जो है इंटरेक्शन जो है जितने भी आपके ब्रॉड बेस के जितने भी सिविल सोसाइटी के लोग हैं सबसे। सर ये एक दो रीजन था। तीसरा जो है, जो ये स्टूडेंट्स हैं इनका क्या है कि जैसे लोग प्लेसमेंट की बात करते हैं, जैसे हम लोग के सामने ही क्वेश्चन आता है कि बच्चों का प्लेसमेंट कितना हुआ। एक चीज बिल्कुल क्लियर है कि ये एलएलबी की डिग्री इनको मिलते ही सर ये वकील तो बन जाते हैं। एंड दे आर, मैं आपको बताऊं कि इन स्टूडेंट्स की क्वालिटी ऐसी है कि अभी आपके 4 या 5 दिन पहले मेरे पास किसी रिटायर्ड चीफ जस्टिस सर का फोन आया। उन्होंने कहा कि यार मुझे 3 अच्छे स्टूडेंट दो, जो बच्चे जो है बहुत ही ब्रिलियंट हों और सबसे बड़ी बात कि मेहनती हों। ऐसा नहीं कि बहुत जैसे इंटेलिजेंट होने चाहिए, मतलब दे शुड बी ए हार्ड वर्कर। एंड यू कैन बिलीव इट, उन्होंने कहा कि मैं 60,000 रुपीज, मतलब उन्होंने 60,000 का ऑफर दिया। मैंने कहा ठीक है सर। मेरे पार्ट में ये रहा है कि मैंने अभी बच्चों को बस मैं ढूंढ रहा हूँ कौन बच्चे हैं। अभी मैं 2-3 दिन, क्योंकि उनका अभी एक मैसेज आया कि आप प्लीज मुझे जल्दी बताओ। तो इट इज ए काइंड ऑफ बेसिकली एनएलयू की जो क्वालिटी है वो क्यों है, क्योंकि हम लोग क्लैट के थ्रू स्टूडेंट्स को लेते हैं। वहां हम लोग का सर कोई दखलंदाजी नहीं है। आई एम जस्ट गिविंग यू वन एग्जाम्पल। कल मेरे पास क्या हुआ, मेरे एक फ्रेंड है, उनका फोन आया, वो सीनियर ऑफिसर हैं भारत सरकार में। बोले कि ये मेरे मित्र हैं, उनके बच्चे के एडमिशन का है। उसकी रैंक ऐसी थी कि उसकी कोई उम्मीद ही नहीं है। अब लोग ये सही बात सुनने को भी तैयार नहीं है। सबसे बड़ी बात ये कि आप किसी को ओपनली बोल दो कि एडमिशन नहीं हो सकता है तो आदमी और नाराज। वो आए हमारे पास, हस्बैंड और मैडम, उनकी जो वाइफ दोनों आए। अच्छा, मैं वीसी साहब के साथ बैठा तो वीसी साहब ने कहा कि जो है आशुतोष जी जरा देख लीजिएगा इनका। मैंने उनको बोला कि देखिए, अगर मैं आपको सही बताऊं तो आपको वेट करना पड़ेगा जनवरी-फरवरी तक। एंड दिस इज द फैक्ट ऑल्सो। मैंने ये चीज बोली, आप बिलीव नहीं करेंगे, जिनके रेफरेंस से वो आए थे उनको फोन करके बोला कि तो वो तो साफ साफ उन्होंने लगभग मना ही कर दिया, भैया हमारे हाथ में नहीं तो हम क्या करें। तो ये ऐसा क्यों है, क्योंकि क्लैट में यहाँ पर जो भी बच्चा आ रहा है वो अपने मेरिट पे आ रहा है। उस पर हम लोग का कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. एंड आई फील प्राउड ऑल्सो कि हमारा जो बच्चा है वो वाकई ब्रिलियंट है. वो अशोका और ग्लोबल जनरल जैसे नहीं है. इसीलिए हमें इनको इनको संभालने के लिए बड़ी मेहनत करनी पड़ती है. क्योंकि आप देखेंगे यहाँ पर यहाँ का जो माहौल है एजुकेशनल सिटीज का, वो सर आप लोग से ज़्यादा अच्छा कौन जानेगा. तो सर आई वुड लाइक टू से थैंक्स टू ऑल ऑफ यू फॉर गिविंग योर प्रेशियस टाइम. एंड आई वुड ऑल्सो एडवाइज टू ऑल द स्टूडेंट टू प्रिपेयर योर ऑन नोट्स. क्योंकि जो सर चीज़ें बोल रहे हैं, सर लोग अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस से बोल रहे हैं, और आप उसका एक प्रोजेक्ट रिपोर्ट बना करके आप अपने पीआरओ सर को सबमिट करें. थैंक यू सर.
Thank you very much, sir. Your guidance continues to inspire us. We shall now proceed with the formal felicitation of our distinguished media resource person who have graciously made time for us today. Each of them represents decades of journalistic excellence and a deep commitment to truth, public interest, and the written word. Now, I would kindly invite worthy Registrar sir to facilitate Mr. Satya Prakash.
Mr. Jatin Gandhi.
Now, I would kindly ask sir to facilitate Mr. Sandeep Phukan, sir.
Mr. Neeraj Mohan, sir.
Now, I would kindly ask sir to facilitate Mr. Satya.
Mr. Mukesh Tondon, sir. Thank you, sir. You are requested to proceed for the tea break.
For the guest, the break is in faculty lounge.
And for the students outside the moot court hall.
Yeah, sure.
You all are kindly requested to rise for the group photograph.